If it feels hauntingly familiar, that's because it is. We've done this already. Almost 1 year ago, the New York Times published its expose of Harvey Weinstein and the many allegations of sexual assault, harassment, and exploitation against him. The New Yorker published another the same week, thus opening the floodgates for what became the Me Too movement. But is that really the system upon which we should rely on to solve this problem? It's been 1 week since Dr. Balsi came forward with her story in the Washington Post. In just 7 days, she has been doxxed, hacked, threatened with death and forced to leave her home and separate from her children for their safety. Kavanaugh, on the other hand, has received endless support from President Donald Trump and the entire Republican Party. Like the Me Too movement, where a seemingly endless amount of horror stories were mined and shared, many perpetrators have managed to dodge any modicum of accountability for their actions. Harvey Weinstein, who 87 women have accused of sexual harassment or assault, bailed himself out of any criminal punishment. Louis C.K. is a similar case. Allegations of sexual harassment circulated online for years without his victims coming forward for fear of being entirely blacklisted from the industry. When they did finally come forward to the New York Times last October, CK, who admitted to forcing women to watch him masturbate and ejaculate, faced minor consequences before making an unannounced comeback last month. His victims finally came forward only for the comedian to walk into a comedy club and receive a standing ovation. Other victims of the Me Too movement, as their sympathizers have dubbed them, are also planning their comebacks. It's not that the movement wasn't important or didn't matter for many survivors. Sharing their stories is empowering, and they should continue to do so if it still is. Victims' statements mattered a year ago, like blasés do today. Everyone who chooses to share their story should be able to do so without the ensuing trauma and harassment. And the intention behind flooding Twitter feeds and Facebook timelines with horror stories is a valid one. But ultimately, support and solidarity with survivors do not have to come at the cost of re-traumatization from sharing your own experience. Donations can be made to the Time's Up Legal Defense Fund. Checking on friends and colleagues who you know are survivors is another way to participate, as is calling out men whose behavior falls anywhere on the scale of boorish to predatory. Donating money or time to women's shelters, joining protests and marches, amplifying others' stories through social media, joining grassroots political campaigns and supporting women in office are all ways of contributing to the mission of Me Too without having to insert your own personal story into it. These are the perpetrators of a cruel system. It should be on them to repair it. Genevieve Hatch is a politics reporter at HuffPost. Need help? Visit RAINN's National Sexual Assault Online Hotline or the National Sexual Violence Resource Center's website.